I try to form my words correctly because sometimes I can get a little diverted. But I've been feeling inside of my soul something that I heard a brother say a month ago, maybe. I didn't quite feel it then, but I'm feeling it now. And that is that we have a wonderful opportunity for revival in the United States, perhaps in the world. You know, to revive means to bring back to life. And restoration is what the gospel's all about. But when I speak of revival, what I'm speaking of is that the church awakens, that believers answer the call of God upon their life in terms of commitment and focus and priority, and that they stop thinking so much about what God can do for them, but they start thinking, what can I do for God? And not only what can I do for God, but there's this hunger that says more, Lord. I need you more, and myself less. God, I want these promises that you promise. I want these things that you tell me can be. I want to see them manifested. And we believers see it in our lives in different ways anyway. That's God's good grace upon us. But you know, when you go into the promised land, there was two tribes that said, no, we'd like this land right here on this side, you know, and we'll go with you and we'll help you and we'll go through everything that needs to be gone through. But when it's all said and done, we'd like to come back here. And the other, you know, they said, okay, that's fine, you can do that. And they did, and, you know, they went and fought with them and everything, and then they came back. But it always struck me kind of funny because I thought, why wouldn't you want the promised land? I mean, it's a promise of God. The other land may look all right, and, you know, but if you're going to do the work, for goodness sakes, get the promise. And when I read that, it makes me want to not stop, you know. When you think about the early pioneers in the United States and how big we are, aren't we? A friend in England said she's just amazed at how big the United States is. And it's true, how large we are, so many states, so much diversity, and yet so much in common. And the early pioneers who would start to go west, and the reasons that they would go west. Some for starting a new life, some for riches and fame, some for glory, some for adventure, and maybe some just to see relatives who'd went on before. But whatever the case, they started heading west. And my original home is in central Illinois, and how I love the black, rich soil of Illinois. My wife Rita used to make fun of me, you know, because I'd talk about this rich black soil so much. She'd never really paid much attention to it when she'd visited Indiana and, you know, places like Illinois up there close. And so when we visited, she wanted to bring a jar back for me. But it is so rich and so lush, this soil. And I thought, okay, I can understand why farmers would stop here in Illinois. You've got this beautiful flat land, and then in the southern you've got these rolling hills, but you've got this rich, lush soil that you could grow anything. You could grow rocks there, you know. It's just anything will grow. So your pastures would be aplenty, your livestock full, and your larder full. So I could see that, but yet there were still people that pushed on. They pushed on through the other states and heading west and finally got all the way to California. This beautiful land of California. I've never been to California. My sister, Debbie, has been, and she told me of it, and others have told me of it, and I've, of course, you know of it, read about it and whatnot. It must be a beautiful state, absolutely beautiful state. Some went, different places, up north, south. But for different reasons, people stopped. For different reasons, they stayed where they were and they stopped traveling. And I often wonder, like the bayou of Louisiana, how'd people get there and why did they stay, in this rough, hard land? And they had their reasons, and you talk to somebody that lives in the bayou and they wouldn't live anywhere else. So, I don't know, it's just all those thoughts got me thinking in this particular time. And I'm thinking, why would we stop in this thing of God? Why would we camp out in a denomination or put God in a box and say, this is as far as you can move? We'll accept you, Lord, as long as you stay in this little box we've got you in. But you start to pull some new stuff, or you start to put us under tests, or you start to put us under pressure and tribulation or persecution. What's going to happen to us? Some of us are going to fall away. And some of us will just camp out and stay where we are because it's just, we're tired of traveling. It's too treacherous, or Uncle Bob died on the way here, so let's just stay here. But there's others that press on. There's others who say, no, I don't care what the cost is. I'm moving on because there's more to move on to. And that's what I feel in the Spirit, that God is saying, that this time that we're in is a time of revival. It can be a time of revival for the individual in the church. You don't necessarily have to be a pastor or someone called to the fivefold ministry to devote your heart to God, You can be just John Smith, who happens to work as a janitor in a little school somewhere in a little no-town place. And you can press on with God and be one of those mighty men spoken of in the book of Hebrews. Those mighty men of faith, mighty women of faith. No, so you can press on. You can revive yourself, you see. You don't have to be somebody in the fivefold ministry. You can just be you. And you can set your priorities right, set your heart right, let your hunger start to feel it, Feel that hunger, that desire to be with the Lord, to do what the Lord wants in a way that you've never done it before. Pushing yourself to the limits, getting rid of baggage along the way because it's only slowing you down. Parasitical sins that seem to hang on and waste you away. Oh, how God hates that. Parasitical sins that Christians try to hang on to. Pornography at an all-time high. How can you watch pornography in your living room on your laptop thinking that God doesn't see it, and then stand behind the pulpit and preach? I know it can be done, and it's a sorrowful thing in the eyes of God. And when the fall comes hard. So listen to me. Those who are in the fivefold ministry, listen to me. Don't you lose heart if you're caught up in parasitical sins. Don't you lose heart if you're given to depression or oppression of the enemy, or if you're given to some kind of a parasitical sin, or if you, I know I keep saying that because that's what it is. It feasts upon you. You just take this word to heart. Revive yourself. Revive yourself. Bring yourself closer to God. Repent. Turn away from those things. Set your mind and your heart on those things above, and you won't fulfill those lusts of the flesh. It can be done, I know, because I do it. Others do it. So it can be done. You can live a victorious Christian life. It can happen. And I ask you to join hands with me and go to California, as it were. Not settle, not set, but keep yourself young. Keep yourself with a vision that God gives, that there's more. There is much more in the Lord. And this time that we find ourselves in is a time that calls us to come to the surface, to come out, bring the depths of who God is up to the surface so He can be seen. Don't when somebody says, hey, will you pray for me and my mom? Or da-da-da-da-da-da. Don't you wait. You pray right there. And if you see somebody who needs prayer, pray for them. That's your priestly duty. And by that I'm saying God's raising a people up. We're a priestly people. We're an intercessor for the world. So listen to me. This is what I'm saying. Revival's at our doorstep. We don't have to wait for it to break out upon the world, because these little campfires are breaking out all across the land. These little campfires of revival. It's going to create a glow in the horizon. Other people will see it and they'll come to it to be warmed. They'll come to it, just like in the book of Acts, where Peter stood up and he preached the gospel, and before you knew it, thousands were coming because they liked what they saw. They understood. There's goodness in the heart of God. There's a place of rest in this great adventure of following Christ.